Hey everybody, thanks for being here. It's good to see everybody. So as everybody knows, we're learning from this book called The Inner Work, which is a compilation of excerpts from the writings of the Baal HaSulam, Rav Yehudah Ashlag, who is the Master Kaballist who wrote the commentary on the Zohar. He decoded the Zohar, and we've been learning from this book. And so each week, I like to think about what to, how to start off, say something about the crisis that we are, or the world is in, and try to connect it to the work that we're doing, because the work is directly connected to what we're doing. And so what we need to do is continue to clarify and to understand why we say that. And so let me just start with an excerpt that we did last class, because I want to just continue talking about the excerpt, because a lot of these excerpts we can read it over and over and over again. So let me start by reading this excerpt. The holy books state in many places that the redemption and the Messiah will come through Kaballah. This is because the inner wisdom of the Torah brings us to the essence of Judaism, the transformation from the desire to receive to the desire to give. Okay, so as everybody out there knows, this has been a real brutal week. The last 2 weeks have been really brutal, and it feels like the crisis, the war, has really taken really taken another level into just, real anger and hostility and confusion, and it's really something that is very disconcerting for all of us to see the world in such upheaval. So what I wanted to talk about is anti-Semitism, and so I want to say that this class is a Kabbalah class, and so we are talking about the spiritual root of the Torah, the inner aspect of the Torah, the deepest level of the soul, the secret level, which is the spiritual level. And so we all hear, I monitor a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different news organizations, and people are saying, sorry guys, let me just fix that. People are saying, you have people, rabbis and pundits of all types, giving examples for, trying to defend every position, and people give reasons for anti-Semitism. So here I would like to see if we can discuss a little bit what the Baal HaSulam, what Rav Yehudah Ashlag, what the Kaballists say is the spiritual root, the deepest reason for anti-Semitism. Okay? So, as unlikely as it is, the Kabbalists tell us that the reason why the world is angry at the Jewish people, those that are, obviously many people are not angry, but many people love and bless the Jewish people and Israel, and other people are angry. And some of the people who are angry are Jewish, and some of the people who are angry are not Jewish, and some people who seem to be the most against the Jewish people are sometimes Jewish, and so that's another wrinkle that we can tackle that conversation at a later date. But let's just talk about anti-Semitism in general. And so the Kabbalists tell us that the reason why the world is so focused on the Jewish people, on the Jewish nation, is because of the Torah. Because the Jews, the Israelites, our descendants, our forefathers, were given a method. They took on an obligation, a contract, a brit in Hebrew, to be a light unto the nations. Now that's very nice to hear, and we've all heard that, but what does that mean on a spiritual level? What does that mean on a Kabbalistic level? And so, as unlikely as it is, as crazy as it might sound to some people, there is a method hidden within the Torah, and it speaks about how to transcend the ego and overcome differences and unite the whole world in peace and love. And that's the method of Kaballah. You have all the spheros, and in the spheros, all these different spiritual worlds, and each one of them has a name. You have the, Chesed, Gevur, Teferet, all these different names, and we learn that these are different powers, and somehow these powers cannot connect until we transcend, until we rise above these two different opposing forces, and somehow we bring them together, and we're able to make peace between oppositional forces, between the restrictive force and the giving force, right? All these different forces. So, why is it? Let's just ask a very obvious question. Why is it that why are the Jewish people the ones who ended up with this job? And why is it that just why isn't that everybody does it? Why is it that seems very unlikely that God would pick one group of people to do it? So let's just talk Kabbalistically what happened. Let's go through the history, but talk about the spiritual history of the Jewish people. Abraham was a man living in the most cosmopolitan city in the world at that time, which was Babylonia. And in the city, now all you have to do is imagine New York, imagine Moscow, imagine Paris, right? You have a country where all different types of people come together, and they all come together, and after a while people say, oh, no one's happy, everybody's miserable, everybody's fighting with each other. So you see today, right, you go to New York, you see people yoga, and every 6 months there's somebody telling you, you have to eat carrots, then somebody else is telling you have to eat, make sure you have turmeric, and everybody's talking about all these different ways to try to become healthy and happy and united, right? So it's a very natural thing. And so in this place, in Babylonia, there was this great spiritual person, Abraham, and he wasn't the first one. We had in the Bible, it talks about all these different generations. We had Noah, and we had all these different people, and so they were working this method of trying to connect to God, connect to the higher force, connect to the forces of nature, the spiritual forces of nature, and learn about the nature of existence and how the world works and all these, and try to figure out how can people end up having a good life? How can people make peace with each other? So Abraham was doing this, and so then we just have to read the Bible. We know that Abraham had children, and then we just follow this process, and we see that they were very busy trying to decide who is going to be the progenitor of this method. You see that there was different brothers, and they were all arguing about who's going to get the birthright. But what is the birthright? The birthright is who is best suited to take on this mission, to take on this work, to continue this work of doing this method, which is called Torah and Mitzvos, which is the whole Torah, but specifically we're talking about the spiritual mechanics in Kabbalah. And so they were discussing who's going to take this job on. And so we see that throughout the history in the Torah that the Torah is telling us about, we see that the Jewish people fall in and out of this state of higher consciousness. So you have the giving of the Torah is one of these central narrative components, right? The Jewish people come to Har Sinai. The Torah tells you that they unite as one man with one heart, meaning everybody got together in love, and they somehow figured out how to be in balance with the spiritual forces, with God, and in that place they were able to unite and find a level of unity. And then they fell out of it. They made mistakes, and they fell out of it. And then you see the next time we're learned that the Jewish people ended up in the first temple, where they ended up achieving a very high level of unity amongst themselves. And then there was problems, and they made mistakes, and they fell out of it, and the temple was destroyed. And now we're only talking about the spiritual inner aspect of what's going on, the spiritual stages that we're going through. We're not talking about the narrative, the outside story. So the people came together in unity. They had the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and then they fell out, and then they had the second temple. And then we see that we're going to go on a very, very long 2,000 years of exile, we call it, of being out of this place, out of this place of unity. Okay? So I want to read a piece from this. This is a book. This is going to make more and more sense, guys, as we keep going. I want to read from another book. This is a book called Ahavas Yisrael, about brotherly love, by the Rebbe Rashab. This is This is not the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father's father. It's not his grandfather, because he was, but it's the second to last of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's, and he was a very deep Kabbalist and Hasidic master. And I want to just read to you this, and I hope it's a very complicated Kabbalistic passage, but I think that after we read it, we're going to understand why I'm reading it and how it pertains to this. And the question that I'm asking is why the Jewish people? Why shouldn't it be everybody? Why is it that the whole world is looking at the Jewish people, and the whole world is saying to the Jewish people, hey, you're supposed to be doing this method, and you're supposed to be sharing it with everybody. You're supposed to be doing this thing. You're supposed to be bringing peace to the whole world by being a light onto the nations, and you're not doing your job, and we're all very angry at you, and it seems very unlikely, right? So here, let me read this, okay? It's very small print because it's in the footnotes. I'm going to pick it up right in the middle so that we can get to the point that I'm trying to bring out here. However, the actual fusion of the powers as they exist as separate entities results from the weakening of these essential powers. Their emergence in a controlled form where they can coalesce with their antithesis, their opposite, is accomplished through the power of the intellect. This relates to the concept of tohu. Tohu means chaos, and tikkun. Tikkun means repair, to fix. Discussing through, tohu tikkun. That's the end of the point, okay? So what was said here is that there are all of these forces in very high levels of spirituality that are very unified. And then when they break out into their own manifest components, when they break out and you have gevura, which is stringency, all by itself, it's extremely powerful. And you have chesed, which is the giving force, being very, very open and just giving and giving without asking anybody if they deserve it and just being very, just constantly wanting to just give and give and give, right? So these are different forces. So what the Rebbe Rashab just said here is that in their higher states, they're in the world of tohu, of chaos. This is the world where Esau came from. They're so powerful, these forces, that you can't work on putting them together. So imagine you have somebody who's is so interested in like marathon running, and you have somebody who's so interested in lifting weights, and you want to get somebody who's going to do both. But if somebody is so unbelievably focused on running, and that's all they want to do is run longer distance, and somebody who just wants to lift heavier and heavier weights, it's going to be very hard to have a balanced person with both of those qualities. And so what the Rebbe Rashab here is saying is that first, what has to happen is that these powers have to be weakened so that we can work with them. And so in the higher worlds, you have the worlds of chaos, and that it's not until the things are brought down that they can be worked with. This makes perfect sense. Just think about it. That if you want to take two forces and put them together and they're so powerful, they're going to destroy each other if they're opposites, right? So we see that that's what happened in the Torah, is that there was a desire. The Torah is a method for us to bring peace to the world, balance within ourselves and within all people, that we have to balance. I have a desire to make money, but I also have a desire to be good to people. I don't want to take advantage of people when I make money, right? So I have to balance these different forces, right? So I want to be, if I have children, I want to be good to my children, but sometimes I need to be strict, and sometimes I need to be giving, right? Sometimes the kid does something wrong, you have to give them a punishment out of love, and sometimes if they do something good, you want to give them a reward out of love. They're both love, but sometimes you need different forces when you're dealing with somebody, right? So we're trying to build a balanced person, and a balanced person can make peace with his community, and then his balanced community can make peace with the country they live in, and then the country can make, a balanced country can make peace with a country next to them, that's because they're in balance with themselves first, and then with others. So basically what we see in the Torah is that are we good? What we see in the Torah, am I going too fast? Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what we see in the Torah is that there was a process of getting these forces to a place where we can work with them. And so you had Abraham, and he had sons, and he says, which one of these sons has more of a balanced nature that he can do this work? And then you have the next generation comes, and the next generation, and the next generation. So what we have now today, what we're looking at today is we have a group of people who did this method over and over again throughout history, right, and prehistory, and they've achieved a certain amount of balance within themselves, within their community. So this is a secret in Kabbalah, but this is something they don't tell you. The Jewish people are not a people like other people. You have people from Iceland, they're all from Iceland, and they're very similar because they're all from Iceland. That's not the root of the Jewish people. The root of the Jewish people is that we're very, very different people. So in Babylonia, Abraham, the first, the father of the monotheistic religions, he came together with students. These were not people who were like each other. These were people who came together. Why did they come together? Because they were trying to make peace with each other, and they said, we can't get along with each other. And so they came to a spiritual person, and they started to study, how do we become imbalanced. And back then they were very in touch with nature, so they would look up at the universe and they understood all about the planets. So they felt these forces acting upon them from above, and they didn't understand them. And so Avram Avinu studied the Kabbalistic books that came before him, Sefer Yesira, and there's a few other books I can't remember, but okay. And they were doing this work. And so now we are in a state where the Jewish people, because we have a contract with God, we have this job that we took on over many, many generations. And now, in order for the whole world to unite, we see now in the world, people do not get along. People are very, very, very different. So those differences between people exist within the Jewish people also. The only difference is that we've done the work over many, many generations of learning how to make room for each other and how to do this work, and we've achieved a certain amount of success in the past. And now we have an easier time, even though look how hard it is in Israel. We have so many divisions in Israel, so many different groups of people, and so many people religious people, not religious people, liberal people, conservative people, and so we have all of these, and we have Jewish people from all different races, and we have Jews from Asia, we have Jews from Africa, we have Jews from Arabic countries, and from Eastern European countries, and so the work right here, we just read it, let me read it again, so we can try to understand what's being said here, because I guess it is a little bit, it could be complicated. Listen to what the Baal HaSulam is saying. The holy books state in many places that redemption and the Messiah will come through Kaballah. So he's telling us is that this inner aspect of Torah is the method by which we do exactly what they did at Har Sinai and what they did at the first temple and what they did at the second temple, which is learn how to unite above our differences. And so this is the work. When the rabbis were in Europe, there were many discussions about whether or not they should come back to Israel. And they were worried about the fact that the Zionists weren't religious, and they were worried about all these different things. And so a lot of the rabbis said they should not go back to Israel yet because the Jewish people are not necessarily ready to do the work. And Rav Ashlag, went to all the different rabbis and said, we have to start teaching all the people now. If we're going to go back to the state of Israel, the whole world is going to look at us and they're going to demand that we bring the redemption. What does it mean, bring the redemption? It means be a light unto the nations. What does it mean to be a light unto the nations? It means to show the world the method of Torah and mitzvos so that they can learn how to do it. And so, since we are a smaller group of people and we've done the method before, it's going to be easier for us to do it again, and then people will be able to copy us and they'll be able to learn from us. And this is already happening. If you go online, if I told you 50 years ago that there would be a machine, a thing you can hold with a screen in your hand, and you can go on there and you can see all the rabbis giving classes, you'd be like, what are you talking about? They're teaching Torah to everybody? What do you mean? What are you talking about? You're not allowed to do that or whatever. That's what's happening now, is that the person can go, and we have people who are Noahides, people who are Christians, people who are Muslims, people who are atheists, people who are not religious Jews, all accessing Torah and mitzvot from all over the world. And so a person has to do a personal discernment and try to feel where they should be working and where they should be studying. But what is clear is that there are definitely many people all over the world who are awakening to the spiritual conversation that's being had in Kabbalah. And for those people we don't force people and we don't demand that people do things, but we have to make this wisdom available for people, and so that people can start to do the Torah this is the Torah of the Geula. This is not the Torah of the Galut. The Galut means the exile, and the Geula means the redemption. And so here, I'm not saying this. The Baal HaSulam, Rav Yehudah Ashlag, and all the other Kabbalists, he is writing a commentary on the Ari Ha Kodesh and on the Zohar. So he's saying here, the holy books state in many places that redemption and the Mashiach, the Messiah, will come through Kaballah. This is because the inner wisdom of Torah brings us to the essence of Judaism, which is the transformation from the desire to receive to the desire to give. That's what we're learning here. And so, people are angry at the Jewish people, and the people don't know why they're angry, and there's Jewish people who are angry, and they don't know why they're angry. And so this is what the Kabbalists are telling us. The reason why they're angry is because, not because they say, I need the Jewish people to be making sure that their esrog and their lulav is like, that they have a very perfect esrog and a very perfect lulav. That is a whole other conversation that we have to learn in Chassidut about the external mitzvos and how they also have spiritual energy and a spiritual component. And it's the Rebbe says that Chassidus is a revelation on top of Kabbalah, even higher than Kabbalah. But that's not a conversation for now. The conversation for now is that people are waiting all over the world for, how come if one group of people kills another group of people somewhere in Asia, people care, but they don't care that much. But then if Jewish people in Israel start killing someone, they get very, very, very angry, and they're not even sure why they're angry. They're angry for every reason. I heard a good joke. Somebody said a Zionist Jew and an anti-Zionist Jew walk into a bar, and the bartender says, we don't serve Jews here. Which means we have Jews on one side of the equation and on the other side of the equation. If you want to go online, you'll see that there's Jewish people who are against Israel, and there's Jewish people who are for Israel, right? So it's a very crazy thing to see, is that on all sides of this thing, you go to the protests in universities, and you'll see there's a lot of Jewish people there. So those people, they didn't grow up religious, and they say, I'm trying to be a good person, but somebody's not being good. And so they say, who should we blame? I know who we should blame. We should blame the Jews. Why? They don't know why, but the Kabbalists know why. The rabbis know why. And the reason why they're blaming is because there is a method for connecting to God and putting all of these forces together and making peace. And it starts, right, in the Chassidus we learned that we are each a small city. A person is called a small city. So everything that's happening inside of me is happening inside of our entire community, and everything that's happening inside of our community is happening inside of the entire nation, and everything that's happening inside the nation is happening in the whole world in greater and greater and greater amounts of intensity. That's why the fighting that we have in Israel is nothing compared to the fighting that we have between countries. Right? Because each time we go, right? So I fight with myself. It's still, I don't start hitting myself. And if you start fighting with your close neighbors, usually you don't, you yell a little bit, but that's about it. But you start fighting with people outside of your country who you don't know at all, who are very, very different from you, and then all of a sudden you see the people fight in a very, very, serious way. And so the method of Kabbalah, you have 10 spheros. These are 10 powers that exist in everything. And so first I fix the 10 powers inside of myself. And as I fix, and now how do I do that? By doing Torah and mitzvahs on the outside, but also by learning the inside of the Torah and learning about the spheros and reading the Zohar, which is a communication from the higher world, the people who reach those higher levels, talking to us and trying to explain to us how to do the work and how to rise above ourselves. And so as we do all that, we're fixing ourselves, but we're also fixing everything. When you fix yourself, you fix the entire world. And so this is something that becomes very, very, the more a person looks inside, the more a person will realize that and they'll feel that it really, everything that's happening in the world is really a projection of everything that's happening inside themselves. And so very few people are willing to do this. L'chaim, l'chaim, everybody. People say, oh, I don't like these people, they're stealing. But we all steal a little bit sometimes. We all do things that are not, I buy a shirt and I don't necessarily investigate before I buy the shirt how the shirt was made. If anybody broke the law or didn't pay their workers, I don't look at that, right? So we all have to realize that all the bad forces that are outside in the world are also inside of each of us. And so that's why when we fix ourselves, we fix the whole world, and Kabbalah is the method for how we do that, and it's something that we're going to have to continue to learn. And luckily we have Ashlag Kabbalah, which is basically an outline and an instruction manual for the entire method of Kabbalah and how we go about accomplishing that. Any questions? Anything I said? You have something? No? Okay. Yes.
So you're saying the more perfect the Jews are going to become...
Can you speak up loud?
Yeah, the more perfect the Jews are going to become, the less angry the nations are going to become?
The more we become perfected, the less angry people will be.
Right.
So what we have to do now is we have to understand what we mean by perfected. And so if by perfected means that a person memorizes a lot of books or has very nice personal behavior, that is not what we mean. What we mean is that when a person becomes more unified, and when a person becomes more unified, and when the country becomes more unified. And so how are we going to unify people who are religious and people who are not religious, people who are very, very believe that, very conservative values and people who have very liberal values. This is not an easy thing to do. The people don't agree. And so, right, these forces don't agree with each other. So how do we bring them together? And that is the study of Kabbalah. So the answer to answer your question is, as the nations of the world see Israel doing Torah and mitzvahs, which they're seeing already, but they see them doing Torah and mitzvahs and becoming more unified and making peace with each other and doing the method and making the method available to everybody else, then the people will be calmed down, yes, and more people will become happy with Israel. We have many people in I think the last statistics came out that 80% of people in the United States are pro-Israel.
That's right.
Okay, so we have to be careful that we're not. It's very scary to go online and see all these horrible things being said all the time. But we have to know that the people who are the most, the agitators seem like they're a larger group, but really many people already understand. Now they may not be able to articulate it in the language of Kaballah, but what they can do is say, I like Jewish people, I think the Jewish people are doing a good job, I think Israel's a good place, I think they're doing their best, right? And so the more that we do Torah and mitzvahs properly, and with the inner aspect of Kabbalah, and the more we unite with each other. So if you're Chabad and you're able to get along with Breslov, and you're Yeshivish, and you're religious, and you're able to get along with non-religious people, but how do we do that? And so that is something that we have to, as observant Torah Jews, we have to understand that is the Torah. And I'm not saying that, the Kabbalists are saying that is the Torah, is how, when we study Torah the right way, the inner aspect of Torah, that is the method of how we start to make peace between ourselves and each other, and then the whole world. Okay, thanks so much. Thanks so much.